Okay, Max, picture this. You're watching the Super Bowl. An ad for a product you've never heard of comes on TV, and I'm on the product. Do you buy it?
Okay, are you physically on the product, like you're writing the product, or are you're
Just
hawking it?
I am selling the product that I am not physically on, but I'm selling you a product. Would you buy it?
I mean, I'll say this, Dave. If I saw you in a Super Bowl ad, I'm gonna look up about what that product is. I'm gonna be interested. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it though.
What if your mother was on the product?
Same answer.
What if Scarlett Johansson's on the product?
Probably not. Probably
Chris
not.
Hemsworth, John Hamm, George Clooney, John C. Riley. Well, we're going to get into
Well,
all of that in this one because all of them were on the Super Bowl ads. So
oh,
let's get into it.
welcome to Picture This, the podcast where we examine the weekly box office and ask, what do movie-going trends say about American culture? My name's Max. I'm a screenwriter and son of an independent movie theater owner who's loved movies his whole life.
And I'm Dave. Over the last 10 years, I've worked for a filmmaker, an agent, and at a movie studio in movie marketing. Today, Max, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about
Mhm.
movie stars in the Super Bowl and what it means to sell out in 2026.
After these ads, I'm so curious about what the world and the attitude is on selling out these days.
Is it even a thing, Max? But first, as always, we're going to talk about the state of the biz. Just a couple quick updates. State of the biz. Let's go through the current box office. What is typically and normally a pretty slow weekend at the box office. Super Bowl weekend, the weekend right before Valentine's Day, usually kind of quiet. But we have overall some decent successes in the last couple of weeks. Box office
Yeah,
is
I mean,
led
Dave,
by.
I've referred to January as the killing fields where movies go to die. I stole that from a friend of mine, but this January seems a little different for the most part.
Top on the list for that is this movie Send Help, which didn't open this weekend, opened the previous weekend and stuck to good numbers. It's a Sam Raimi directed, Rachel McAdams to star, and Dylan O'Brien. And great little horror movie. Max and I both saw it. I think we can both say it was marketed as a horror movie, but had a lot more thought into it and a lot more kind of like humor and social satire.
Just an absolute fucking blast. A blast of a film. Y'all listen to all of our episodes. You know how I talked about how fun Housemaid was, where people were like shouting at the characters and clapping. Fucking Send Help was the same thing. People were so excited to see this like revenge fantasy of switching power between you and your boss. I love an Everybody Hates Our Boss movie. It was a classic example of a movie that gave us everything it promised to give us, every last little thing, but it did it in a way that we didn't expect. But there were so many fun, like body horror comedy gags and like cartoony violent stuff that I found super delightful. The comedic timing in this movie was pretty superb. What do you say, Dave?
Oh, dude, I agree, man. It's so fun. Sam Raimi, again, like very famous filmmaker who came up on the rise in the horror genre with movies like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and then really hit the mainstream with directing the first Spider-Man movie, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. And now he's just been like the emeritus horror. Other than Blumhouse, he's just kind of like the stamp of approval on horror movies. He's made some bad ones over the years, but like in general, he's really great. And in Send Help, he's really cooking when it comes to delivering on the horror promises that you and I discussed, as well as also weaving some like interesting social commentary with a lot of humor. Again, this is another example where like the marketing really met the property. The property itself has great reviews on Letterboxd and all the platforms, and the marketing was really fun towards it. It very much teased the horror element of it with a little bit of comedy. And then I think the movie itself ended up being like melding of that. So I absolutely loved it. Yeah.
To go to your thing, Dave, like I think it really overperformed on our expectations, and that's helping word of mouth generate and like carry it to further business. I did a little bit of reading on it. It had been in development since like 2019, so good for them for sticking with the project. And Sam Raimi was specific about thanking the executives at Fox for letting, like when they first brought the project to them, they, instead of trying to flatten it or make it softer around the edges, they really encouraged the weird And I think that's paying off for them big time, big time. And there's a lot of love for the studio executive over at Fox. What's his name? Steve Abel? Hold on.
Steve Asbell, yeah, he's a
Steve
legend.
Asbell.
He also oversaw Predator Badlands, which
Yeah.
started the Big Dumb Movie pod that we did in the fall. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
legend. He's a great guy.
So great to hear that when executives get a chance to do their job and they do it well. We love hearing that over here. Picture this.
Number 2 on the box office, exact opposite experience. This movie Iron Lung came out the weekend of the 30th. And it was created and marketed and essentially distributed by a YouTube content creator named Markiplier. It's being talked about a good amount in Hollywood, and I think not talked about enough because it kind of breaks the mold in how Hollywood delivers movies to audiences. And it's something that Max and I are fascinated with. This guy Markiplier did it a totally unique way where he just has a fan base of, I want to say, about 40 million YouTube subscribers, YouTube followers. He's been around for over 10 years. He's been a longtime content creator, monetizing it on these digital platforms. And then put a script together. The Iron Lung, this movie is based on a video game, a kind of indie developed video game that he fell in love with and reached out to the creator, created a script, got together $3 million, which is no small feat in itself, to make this film. And remember that number for making it $3 million, because it'll come up later. And then he himself just essentially called the distributors, called AMC, called Regal, called Cinemark, and asked his followers to do the same thing and essentially demand to put it in theaters. And it freaking worked. Meanwhile, Max, if you and I just called theaters, I think they would think we were prank calling them. So anyway, it's a real Cinderella story. But that movie opened to $17 million. We always like to use the movie Big Bold Beautiful Journey, which starred Margot Robbie and Colin Farrell, opened to 4. So just in the world of how big the swings are in movie theaters right now, that movie opened to 17.8. It's made $31 million in its second weekend. Just a really cool story and one to keep an eye on. We'll probably bring it up later on.
My dad owned a movie theater for 50 years, has been complaining about the outdated distribution model in Hollywood for like 20 of those years. Said they established it pretty much in the 80s in the wake of like Jaws and Star Wars and stuff like that. And they don't know how to distribute. They know to distribute a couple of types of films, but for the most part, like smaller movies with niche audiences, movies for people who don't traditionally go to the movies, we're now seeing in this day and age a lot of those audiences being served. We've talked about like the anime audience being served. We've talked about Angel Studios and the success that they're having with like Christian-based or Christian-adjacent content. And to see this break out in such a unbelievably successful way, not only says a lot about distribution, but also just about making movies for the right cost.
It's really, really cool. And again, I think it's still an anomaly. There's a franchise called the Terrifier franchise and a movie called Terrifier 3. Well, it was something similar. And then the only other comp you can kind of say is Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, when she released her movies, she's also doing it without a quote unquote traditional distribution arm. So yeah, with her, with Markiplier, with Terrifier, these people are not going through a Warner Brothers, a Sony, and those big studios have these relationships with the exhibitors, and these handful of people, just in the last 2 years, have found a way to kind of like cut through that. And third, Max, you just mentioned this. This is an Angel Studios release, Solo Mio, which starred Kevin James, and it's made $7 million. I know nothing about Solo Mio. I know absolutely zero.
Much from what I looked up earlier today. It's like a $7 million movie.
I know un poquito on Solo Mio. What do you got? What do you got, Max? Do you know anything?
It's like a $4 million movie, which is interesting because, Kevin James used to command quite a salary, and it grossed $7 million. And Angel Studios has a very specific, they kind of have like their own whole marketing arm, their own fans that they could reach out to directly. Yeah. But I think it's just like a small rom-com. I think James gets left at the altar and then he has one of these what is it all about journeys, and people say the movie is either delightful or it's like overly sappy and sentimental, which is on brand with whatever Angel does, which also means I'm never going to see this movie. So we're not the authority here at Picture This to talk about what they're doing, but they're making
Hey,
money.
it might not be a passion point for Max and I, but it is also worth keeping an eye on that there is an audience for movies like that, though it might not be the picture this type of Venn diagram, but it's cool. Next on this little movie called Pillion, which has had a limited release this past weekend, and it's going to go wide. This stars Alexander Skarsgård as a biker who is into BDSM, and our main character, who is a delightfully kind of foppish British guy. Both are gay, and our main character, the Brit, falls in love with this kind of badass, sexy biker who is into BDSM. And it's supposed to be like a delightful love story, but with BDSM.
What did my friend say to me the other day? She said it's a really unique look at like first love. And in the wake of the massive success of Heated Rivalry, I think is indicating that there's a very particular audience for these types of movies and media. And I think that demographic is every woman in Max Kessler's life, because I'm completely inundated by this stuff. And Pillion had a really high per screen average, but it's not Rivalry is, but
I will say a fun experiment for another day would be to confuse the Solo Mio and the Pillion audiences and screen them differently and see them freak out. See someone that might be a little bit more Christian and religious based in the Pillion movie theater would cause a lot of screams. But that's
how upset would all the tattooed bisexual women I know would be when Kevin James came on screen for
you had to watch
instead of Alexander Skarsgård. Yeah.
And then rounding out the bottom, Max Housemaid, again, one of Max's favorite times at the movies, crossed $325 million worldwide.
Dude,
what a slam dunk. And then Avatar 3, Zootopia 2, just the normal sequel behemoths that you'd expect from both coming from Disney and Fox Studios. Still, the question on Avatar 3, which we talked about on a previous pod, is like, will it be enough? Question mark. Some movies that didn't work in January. One a movie called Mercy, released by MGM and Amazon, starring Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson. Maybe you've heard of them. And it just didn't connect. It was a lot of people I know talked about the movie as if it was Minority Report light. This movie did not work. I've heard.
It's interesting that your friends are describing it as like Minority Report light, because going back to what Sam Raimi was saying about Send Help, it seems like there's nothing about Mercy where they leaned into something unusual or interesting or weird. It was just kind of like middle of the road, a lesser version of a beloved movie that already exists.
That's a good question too, and like the Send Help was encouraged to embrace some of the sharp edges, and Mercy just feels like a movie where all the edges were sanded off. But I would offer that is now in 2026, after years of Chris Pratt being on Parks and Rec and being just a hilarious guy, are all his edges now sanded off, where he's just like generic action star? To me, that's how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to this about somebody recently, and they were listening to an interview with him, and even in an interview, they were just flabbergasted by how he wasn't charming or delightful or playful, and because he was like, I know that person's in there somewhere. Like, why are you hiding him? What's going on? What are you trying to project to us, the outside world, of who you are as a star and what roles attract you? And it's just like, there's nothing there.
Man, as a person, Chris Pratt might be going through his own journey, and good for him. But like, I would say the one that I would want to see on screen is the version of him that had a bit of that mix, and probably best personified by that Guardians of the Galaxy moment where he was handsome and action forward enough to hold the frame, but also still had that quirky side to him that he definitely embraced and enjoyed.
Be more playful, be a little vulnerable, and then
I agree, man.
Tough guy. Being a tough guy is not hard.
Anyway, Chris Pratt, come on the pod. We can fight about it.
I'll say you straight, bud.
Next on the list is
Marty Supreme. Everyone's talking about how massive of a hit this movie is and how successful it is and all this other stuff. And again, I've said this before, they have sold like a pretty awesome amount of tickets, especially for like a special art house indie movie, but like, it's going to lose money. There's really no world where a $70 million movie and a $25 million marketing budget is going to be able to meet the box office receipts when it's kind of trickling out at $93 million right now. It might cross the $100 million mark, but that's not going to be enough. And the international receipts aren't really coming in hard for it either. So it's losing money. But everybody's talking about it like it's this big box office success. What's your take on that, Dave?
In many ways, though I try not to be, but I am affected by the culture that I'm surrounded by. And it is a lot of people in Los Angeles. And everyone is loving talking about the Marty Supreme marketing campaign. Most of my friends love it, and even the ones that don't have it find it very interesting and have a take about why they don't. I think it's as successful as being like a cultural conversation piece. I think as a counterpoint to our conversation about Avatar and James Cameron, though Avatar is going to make far, far more money than a movie like Marty Supreme, the world that I work and live in, Marty Supreme is much more a cultural impact of people talking about it. And yet, take a step back from my little insulated world and like, the math ain't mathin', Max. You're totally right. And we kind of hate to bring this up because it is similar to another movie that you and I adored from last year, which is One Battle After Another. And both culturally relevant, mostly lauded by critics and audiences. But if you really look at the receipts, man, it's like, well, is that a profit?
I mean, for One Battle, it's not. I feel like people were pretty clear about that one. But for Marty, it's like, it's pretty clear it's not, but people kind of are trying to frame it. I think it must just be the Oscars. Like, they're just trying to get this thing to win Best Picture. We're going to talk about the Oscars on a different episode. Real talk. I fucking hated Marty Supreme. I fucking hated that movie. And the more I think about it, the more I hate it. I will say it was an incredibly well-made movie. It was incredibly well written and directed, especially the performances, but I found it to be like a vapid piece of art, and I kind of despise it. That said, to your point, Dave, I think the marketing around it is brilliant. I watched that Zoom call at some point in the last few weeks. I laughed my ass off. I thought Chalamet has really shown up in an interesting way. And I think the success of the film really proves that this marketing strategy can work for a less expensive movie. Which is cool and interesting, and I like that. But stop talking about this movie that I fucking hated like it's this big success.
Oh, dude, I can't wait we can dive into more of that later. That's the state of the box office, but we'll just briefly talk about state of the biz because, one of the things that have happened since the last pod is like the Oscar noms are out. Max and I, we are stoked to get into, to dive deep into the Oscars. That'll probably be the next episode. Both Timothée Chalamet in Marty Supreme and Leonardo DiCaprio in One Battle After Another, two movies that both fall into this bucket that we're talking about, like culturally relevant, at least in our circles, big swings, and many people are talking about the success or at least interest of them. But like, fuck, man, if we just drive not that far out of LA, if we just go to Barstow, are people like, what the fuck are they talking about? I don't know what they're talking about.
Ping pong movie? Like, I'm good, dude.
Exactly, man. And then what else, Max? I think this has been a big week about Netflix, and the merger of Warner Brothers is now in front of our United States government, is it not?
Yeah, it is. I didn't read too many of the headlines. I did see a few things about it. Sarandon shows up for a congressional hearing on the merger and just gets grilled from both sides of the aisle. It seems like not a lot of people in our corrupt United States Senate feel like this is a fair thing, is a good idea. They don't think it's healthy for theatrical audiences. They don't believe Ted when he's telling them that they're going to keep the Warner Brothers distribution system one bit. And, there's honestly, like, if you look at Netflix streaming numbers, like, they shouldn't, if they buy something, like, mathematically, that. So I was encouraged by the fact that Josh Hawley was up his ass, a Republican senator from Missouri who I don't like, but it was cool to see him taking a stand against it. So props to that dude who I hate. That's all I got on that. I don't know if you read up on it at all.
I didn't get into the fine print yet. I've heard the same thing that like it feels like this isn't a soft room for Ted to be in, even though I think a lot of people in the Netflix camp, Ted has spent time with our current president, and a lot of people had assumed that because of the current state of our government that would grease the wheels. And it looks like there's a little bit more obstacles for them to jump through. And heck, you know what? Like the results, the specifics of the result, I don't I will be paying closer attention to. But net, I think for both of us, Max and I would agree, is just like anything to help keep the theatrical experience going. Not that hard to read if you're listening to this podcast, that would be where we would net out on it. But yeah, and again, we don't mind the Netflix product, but I think we any more consolidation that would hurt the theatrical experiences we are against.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good point up when you say it looks like, because there's a lot of stuff we see in Congress that is either politicians responding to their constituents' anger and then talking a big talk, but when it comes time to actually vote on these things, like all the bullshit gets approved anyways. So it really doesn't mean anything, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll keep a close eye on it. All right, Max, that was the state of the biz. Let's get into the main event.
Let's get into the Super Bowl.
Okay, Max, why are we talking about the Super Bowl? Because in the era of a fractured audience where it's very difficult to get people's attentions, we've seen the Oscar ratings drop. It used to be in like the 40, 50 million range in the 90s. And I think this past year was a good year at the Oscars and had, I think it was 19 million people viewing it. The Super Bowl last year recorded 128 million people watching. So it is one of the
pretty close to 19 if you think about it, Dave.
It is one of the few platforms of monolith culture, which is no longer really around. And because of that, advertisers have thrown so much money to this space because they know they have the eyeballs. Now, movie studios have capitalized on putting their own upcoming projects on there. So let's start with that. First, Max, here are just the spots that I listed while I was watching the game that you saw on it. And grant you, the Super Bowl commercial has an average spend to buy 30 seconds on the Super Bowl was $8 million. I just mentioned
that's before you've hired anybody to even talk about what the ad should be.
It's just for the space, just for the air. I think they averaged it to be like around $270,000 a second to be in this space. That's how crazy it is. And so many studios decided to spend money to put stuff there. I've worked on these as like studios will create a commercial that will air during the game, and then they will send you to more content that's online. Usually it's a trailer that's online. So that's been the typical model the last couple of years. For this particular Super Bowl, the spots that I saw were Steven Spielberg's upcoming movie this summer called Disclosure Day, Project Hail Mary, which is a movie that stars Ryan Gosling and by these great directors, Lord and Miller, that I know Max and I are big fans of. The new Scream movie, Scream 7, which will come out soon, and they'll just make a Scream movie for the end of time.
Yeah.
Disney's next big release, which is, I guess, technically under the Star Wars umbrella, though it feels so far afield, but Mandalorian and Grogu. Mm-hmm. And then the highlight of my Super Bowl watching experience was a clip from the next David Fincher movie, a script written by Quentin Tarantino, starring Brad Pitt. If you ever want to get my attention, just say those three names at any point, and I'll turn around.
I'll say this, Dave. I don't care for David Fincher, which I know is a crazy thing to say as a movie lover. And also didn't really care for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I did like parts of it, but I was like, it felt disjointed and weirdly long. When they announced this movie, I was like, who cares about this character? Why does he need his own movie? But I fucking like this trailer. I think it looks cool. It looks like a
lot of style, a lot of flash.
Yeah. Fincher doing Tarantino is like, okay, either this is going to be awesome or it's going to be fucking weird.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say I don't even know if it's a movie. It might be a series, and it's going to be on Netflix, which also breaks my heart because it won't be in theaters. But here's how confident they were in the trailer in the commercial that they showed. They didn't put a title on it. They just showed Brad Pitt being fucking cool, and the end of the 30-second spot just said "coming soon" in a super 70s font.
Do we know overall with the trailers you listed if any of them generated, because these trailers were all, except for Cliff Booth, I think these trailers are all out beforehand. So did this create extra interest? Were any of them considered successes or failures? Like,
that's a good question
on that.
Usually when it comes to analysis on success of like a media push. There's a 7-day, or excuse me, there's a 24-hour, there's a 72-hour review, and then there's a 7-day review.
Okay.
All of these numbers you and I won't see, you know, the people at these studios will see, but you can kind of track on YouTube and other social media platforms on the viewership. But also these movies are in these situations, depending on where they are in their marketing cycle, they're looking for different things. Scream 7, I think, comes out really soon. So in that situation, you want people to maybe even try to buy tickets. The movie like Disclosure Day, that movie's not coming out till June. So that's more like an awareness play. We just want someone who's watching the Super Bowl to know, oh shit, Steven Spielberg's got a movie coming out this year. So I think their metrics for success are a little bit different. But as far as just getting a lot of eyeballs on it, that's why you spend $8 million for 30 seconds, which is crazy. But Max, that is actually not the biggest reason why I wanted to talk to you about the Super Bowl today. The biggest reason is there are so many movie stars that are now in Super Bowl commercials. So much so that it made me stop and think of when I was growing up. God, I'm feeling so old. When I was growing up, and I remember vividly, and I think it was 2001, Britney Spears was in a Pepsi commercial on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that was a huge deal. At that time, it feels like there were Budweiser Clydesdales. There were very like humorous commercials. But at the time, most actors and actresses separated themselves from that. Definitely in the 90s and even in the early 2000s. They did not partake in that. And something from 2001 to 2026 has fucking changed.
Dude,
and I don't
off the fucking rails.
And just to give a quick list of what we saw during the Super Bowl as you're eating your nachos and interested or ignoring the game. Adrian Brody, Matthew McConaughey, Bradley Cooper, John Hamm, Scarlett Johansson, Emma Stone, Kurt Russell, Elle Fanning, George Clooney, Chris Hemsworth, John C. Reilly, Danny Trejo, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Aniston, Ted Danson. I'm out of breath. I think I probably missed a couple. And they all not only were in Super Bowl ads, many of them were hawking just the dumbest shit you can imagine. When I was growing up, there was a phrase about artists called selling out. And I don't know if people think like that anymore. That's
because here's the thing, like everyone you just listed, particularly that fucking weird, everybody's 20 to 40 years younger than they were in real life, de-aged Dunkin' Donuts fake sitcom ad. These are not the kids' celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
This is not Gen Alpha's biggest fans. This is not Gen Z's biggest fans. In some cases, it's not even millennials' biggest fans. I don't know what is going on at these ad agencies where they're like, hey, you know who we should get for our $8 million spot? Adrian Brody. And I'm like, dude, props to the guy. 2-time Oscar winner.
That's the thing, man. On the marketing side, the rise of the cost of the spend. It used to be $2 million to buy 30-second spots, and then 4, and then 5. And then as time goes on, we're now up to 8. And again, that's just for the air, just for the space itself. And then you have to go produce that. And then you, as an agency, you make the decision to like how much to invest in the production. And because you're spending $8 million on the media, there's a justification to make sure you spend the right amount on the production. That results in like doing a very like elaborate, expensive production.
That's like the most American business logic I've ever heard in my fucking life. Well, we're gonna spend some money, so we got to spend like $100 million more. Like this is what's also destroying like profitability in the movie business. It's just like, well, we spent $3 million, so now we got to spend 30 more million. It's like you actually don't. You could spend like $4 million if you whatever.
No, and I think that's a good level set, Max, too, because also we're talking about commercials because it's also a reflection of what we really love to talk about, which is like movies, movie production, movie making. I mentioned the movie Iron Lung and its unique approach to the theater, and this guy Markiplier, who again I actually think an older generation would just say, oh, he's a YouTube content creator. That's silly. He's not a real artist. Meanwhile, he scrounged together a good chunk of change, but in the world of making a movie, a small amount, which is $3 million, and he did it on his own. That same person that would probably dismiss a YouTube content creator would probably say like, ah, yes, Adrian Brody, he's a real actor. He was in The Pianist. He did The Brutalist. He's a serious
Yeah.
actor. And I would tell that person to turn on the damn TV on Super Bowl Sunday, and he did a fucking TurboTax commercial. I don't know if that is considered selling out anymore. Real quick, before we get to that question, Max, you added some data here too, which is, and this is the justification for it, is these actors get paid on average, and yes, it depends on your success, your following, how long you've been in the movies versus if you're a young star, but like around $3 to $5 million. Max, I think you even noticed something about Ben Affleck. Do you want to share that one?
You got a $10 million check for that commercial, which is wild. But what's interesting is, so Ben Affleck's a great director. I was an assistant on one of his films, and so I'm a little biased, but he directed that commercial. It went through his company, Artist Equity, so it sounds like it was completely in-house. The data I found was that $10 million did not include the fee that Artist Equity got either. So it was $10 million to Ben alone before they built a single set, before they got any of these other actors. That's a fucking movie budget.
Exactly.
You can make so many movies for the cost of this commercial.
Emma Stone, as an example, I cannot believe she did a silly Super Bowl commercial about domain management, digital domain management, about Squarespace. This is Emma Stone. She's won 2 Academy Awards now. She's pretty much considered one of the top tier, just an awesome, formidable, talented actresses that, as an artist, we're all looking to see what interesting stuff that she did. And she did a fucking Squarespace commercial.
And the interesting thing about that ad is it's so opposite of the Ben Affleck ad, because there's almost no production value in it. And Yorgos, who directed her in Begonia and The Favorite and Poor Things, where she won her Oscar, directed this commercial. And it's a 2-camera setup commercial of her sitting in a chair, and it's in black and white. And I was like, I don't know if this is them punking ad agencies, because she probably got paid $3 to $5 million to sit in that chair for half an afternoon to recite a 30-second monologue, which is way different than whatever Ben Affleck was doing. Were they trying to make it sincerely artistic? Is this a joke?
I don't even want to guess what Yorgos probably got paid too. He probably got paid a healthy chunk as well. But I do remember, Max, when we were talking about Begonia and we were talking about the financials of that movie, and this is where I guess I understand why an actor or a movie star will want to do a Super Bowl spot, because at the end of the day, it's a day, sometimes 2 days of work, sometimes a half a day of work. And that amount of money, though we are agog about how grotesque and how much it is, but then does that mean that Emma Stone can now take more interesting chances in her art? Like, will she do cooler stuff there so she doesn't have to take a Fast and Furious movie that will, again, book her for 4 months because she's got to be on set for the whole thing? And then we don't get the next Poor Things. We don't get the next Lobster. So there's where I have the
case for Adrian Brody, right? Adrian Brody, like, Emma Stone has made some fuck you money. And we talked about that in the Begonia episode. And some of that fucking money might have come from Begonia, because the fucking budget on that movie is absurd.
Way higher than we thought.
Who knows? But I think you're really on the money there, because actors we aren't pulling the residuals or the back end like we used to. There aren't as many roles to do because there aren't as many movies made. The TV salaries, I think, are going down compared to what they were a few years ago, in the same way that writers' salaries are, where it's like, the minimums might be rising, but it's not, the top talent is not getting what they used to. And you could still be like, well, who cares? Emma Stone at some point in her career made $20 million. Why does she need to do a fucking Squarespace commercial? But, for dudes like Adrian Brody, I fucking understand, because I don't think that dude's ever gotten a huge cash out before.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. And also, like, so much money that these people make, we do have to remind ourselves, 10% to an agent, 10% to a manager, 5% to a lawyer, a certain amount to a publicist, a certain amount especially if you're a woman, like to your personal security that you have to pay for your entire life, your financial manager and all this other stuff. And it's crazy how quickly that money can go away, especially if you want to do a small movie. You'll get paid a standard scale rate or whatever, but you have to bring your security with you. You have to keep paying your publicist. So I don't know, man. I'm trying not to be like super critical, but Scarlett Johansson, fucking Black Widow Marvel money, driving up onto that beach in the fucking Ritz commercial. I was just like, what's happening here?
Yeah. And that one especially broke my heart because ScarJo, though she hasn't gotten the same laurels as Emma Stone lately, like she's one of the most formidable actors we have out there. Like,
awesome.
She's amazing. Yeah. And that one, again, okay, going back to the question of just like selling out. I think it's interesting that, like, again, actors like, no, I'm not going to do that commercial. That would be bad for my brand. In around 2001, and then something happened in the mid 2010s, around 2015 and 16, it slowly ratcheted up where like it was okay to put them in a Super Bowl commercial. And for some reason, the audience didn't judge them for that. And there was some, and I think that's interesting because that is the period that was the rise of social media and the beginning of content creators. I don't really have a thesis around that, but I think there's an interesting cross section that I don't think anyone younger than us, Max, really thinks about selling out the way that I grew up and heard the older generation talk about selling out.
Yeah. Okay. So here's an idea. I have a couple thoughts. One, when Britney Spears broke the seal, I think it's interesting that it came from a musician first and not a movie star. Mm-hmm. Because if you know the economics of the music industry, musicians are fucked over so bad. Yep. So bad. So you saw that. And then I think I do remember seeing like Beyonce start to dip her toes in that stuff. Obviously, I'm not sitting in front of the data here to know when movie stars started to do it. But it's one of those things where, like, if it becomes socially acceptable for one person to do it, it becomes socially acceptable for two people to do it. If we're going to spend $2 million on an ad, well, it's okay to spend $2.5 million on an ad. And I think it's one of those things where now we're living in the wake of doing this for 20 years, where you slowly, incrementally one up everything. And we go from, like really fun, unexpected celebrity cameos in like the mid 2000s, early 2010s. And now we're at this fucking Ritz commercial where it's just like the original idea was like, do something unexpected and kind of crazy. And now it's just like unexpected, crazy. Here's a lot. And then there's a jet ski and then fucking John Hamm's there. Oh, and Ted Danson walks out, but he from Cheers, but he's at Dunkin' Donuts instead of Cheers. And to your point about like younger audiences and do they even think that this is a sellout thing? I think they do. And I think that's why we don't see a lot of younger stars there. Not because it's the selling the product thing that's selling out. Because like you said, they came up with social media and everything on social media is a piece of advertising. Even if it's an original content or a sketch or a joke, people are advertising their brand to you. If they're very successful, they're probably going to team up with t-shirts at the very least or a brand partnership or something.
Yeah.
People are very used to being sold stuff at this point. It's expected. It's not weird. We don't have manufacturing jobs anymore like we had 20, 30, 40 years ago. So everybody's trying to fucking sell something. Okay, cool. But it's really a matter of what you sell and why. And maybe it's that. So like Timothée Chalamet, he's selling shit all the time, but it's his own clothing line. And he has marketed himself as a person who's interested in fashion forward, and a fashion trendsetter. So when he sells me a piece of clothing, I'm not like, wow, what a sellout. Fucking this guy who's interested in fashion is trying to sell me some clothing. It's like, that's what that guy should be selling.
Yeah.
Ritz commercial comes on. I'm like, why are these people, celebrities who probably have a nutritionist, fucking selling me Ritz crackers? Also, how do you manage to make Ritz crackers not delicious? Ritz crackers are so good. And they've made them so unappealing with this ad. I'm so mad.
I think to me, I I swear, I don't always mean to do it, but yes, I'm coming back to the Timothy Chalamet of it all,
Yeah.
which I do think is really interesting in that he and Leo represent just two very different models of movie stardom. Because
Yeah.
again, Leo avoided all of this that we're talking about, and that used to be de rigueur. That used to be like what the model that movie stars did, and now we got Emma Stone and ScarJo, and in ads. And I think I love that you're clutching onto that one specific ad, because I think to me too that is the pinnacle of disappointment.
Yeah.
Which it does feel like to me, if you can sell something authentically, that seems to be rewarded and allowed in our culture, or whatever, in my eyes, your eyes, maybe who knows if we're representative of it. But it does feel like because it's so hard out there to make a living in America now, like the judgment on like pushing your own brand or your own wants is like more acceptable now than it was in the 90s. Maybe it was easy to call someone a sellout in the 90s, when like even if you were broke and selling out, like you'd be fine. You could probably buy a house. You just maybe weren't going to be rich. But now, like everyone's just like the gloves are off. So it's like everyone knows, man, you got to get paid.
To go back to an even earlier conversation we had, where I'm been a pretty aggressive in saying that Leo should cut his salary. He should cut his salary. He should cut his salary. But like, if I saw Leo in a fucking Ritz ad like that would be fucking disappointing, man. I'd be like, they need to pay this guy more money so he doesn't do these ads.
Exactly. So now I think we fucking finally came full circle. Yeah, we want him to reduce his salary, but if he does that, and if he shows up in like a Q-tips commercial, I'd be like, what are we doing here, people?
He'll just be in a George Clooney Nespresso commercial in fucking Belgium or something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we've learned nothing here, but I think no, I think I appreciate being able to share, Max, with you just the question of like this selling out, which seems so now passe and of a previous generation. And man, I really hope this is the pinnacle of it, because I agree the Ritz cracker spot made me probably the saddest. Because
out of
it was
the John C. Reilly DJ Khaled weight loss drug ad was also pretty sad, but it's also like, why is DJ Khaled in the fucking professional wrestling ring? Why is DJ Khaled a thing? Who's listening to that dude to be like, I need to be like DJ Khaled? I guess people just want lots of money, but like
that one's tough, because to me that is health related, and again, like we don't know their story. Maybe they genuinely believe in it. Whereas like what's this list? Like I don't know. Hemsworth too. Hemsworth was in an Amazon Alexa commercial. He is also releasing his film Crime 101 for Amazon and MGM. So that's another gross corporate connection right there. That like
I bet he got strong armed into that, man. Like because that movie actually looks kind of cool, and I don't know if it's going to do well. So.
I'm also excited for it, but you can hear the executives in the background talking about it, like, "Hey, Crime 101." Like, if we go see Crime 101 and he talks to Alexa in the movie, I'm walking out. He's like, "How am I going to escape this bank?" Alexa, where are the exits? I'm just like, shoot me in the face. Sorry.
Well, I will say the interesting thing about that ad is the premise is like, the AI on the new Alexa is so good, it's scary. And then it gives you a bunch of reasons to be super scared of Alexa. And I was like, yeah, I don't want that product. I don't want that product at all.
Yeah,
he kind of actually, it could also schedule you a massage. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to be drowned in my own pool like that. Like, yeah, my pool that I have in my apartment. But yeah, that did not make me feel great.
Okay, Max, what do you think the right balance is? What is your desired balance for celebrities, actors that we love as artists, but also need to get paid, want to get paid for their work? Do you want to see them in no commercials?
I mean, it's so easy to shit talk, especially because, when they sign on to these ads, they probably have no idea how they're going to turn out. Just like when you sign on to a movie, you have no idea how it's going to turn out. But it's interesting seeing George Clooney in one of those ads, because he had famously that whole thing about I do, 2 for the studio and 1 for me, or 1 for the studio, 1 for me, whatever it was, which means I'll go do a big stupid commercial film so that I could then go do a movie like Good Night and Good Luck or Syriana or whatever. And the problem in the movie industry now is you don't have the opportunity to go do like that one for one, because the success rate is so much lower, even for big
Mm-hmm.
commercial films. It's just harder to do. There's fewer roles. So, yeah, I think to your point earlier, Dave, like if we get to have artists take more chances and do weird things and make interesting cinema, and like this is the way, this is a pathway for them to do that, then yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with you doing commercials. Actually, overall, I am cool with you doing commercials. But I do think I would like to see just like some level of sincerity going into this. I don't want authenticity necessarily, but like a little bit of sincerity, which is why I think the Ben Affleck Duncan thing kind of worked, even though it was just absolutely crazy. Where like the Emma Stone one was like anti sincerity, and I'm almost like more offended by that.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think for me, the Duncan spot that Ben Affleck directed didn't work, but I hadn't heard it since seeing it yesterday. How you described it, that like on paper there is an idea behind it. If you follow Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and if you listen to this podcast, you probably do. But there have often been questions about like, what if they switched roles in that original movie? And there is a play on persona there that like is interesting. I agree with you. I think Ben Affleck's a great director, and this just didn't work as far as the
No, it
execution.
didn't. It did not work.
Yeah, but to offer up, I think my opinion, I think I'm similar, Max. I think it's like a gross marketing phrase that yes, I've said in a meeting before, but like if there is brand alignment, like if you believe in something, a product, kind of the way Timothy is managing his own brand. And again, to your point, like he actually literally has his own brand, but like if you just really like Nikes and you genuinely wear Nikes and believe in their just do it mentality and you do a Nike spot, okay, that's cool. I think
Dude, that Marshawn Lynch ad was perfect.
worked, man.
Perfect.
He knows who he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even more so to this point of this rant overall, like if this allows you to take more interesting chances in the artistic space that of course Max and I love, which is movies, if you can, move forward with a more interesting script because you got paid on on the Nike spot, I think that's the great equilibrium. But please don't sell me Ritz crackers.
You don't need to. They're so good. Dave, what do you think? What do you think this says about the future of the movie star?
I think it's changing, and I think that's going to be what we're talking about in the next couple of weeks with Oscars. I think
Yeah.
overly simplified and up for debate, but in many ways, I think Leo is the old and Timmy is the new. And
Yeah. What about Michael B. Jordan?
I think he's great. You know what? He's not in a Super Bowl commercial, but he does sell Chase Sapphire, and you know what? Those commercials aren't blowing the doors off of artistic creativity at all, but
There's almost something more honest than that, Dave. There's no artistry to this at all. I'm here to sell you Chase. Give me my money.
But
he does
but
like a
he's
Dolce and
refined.
Gabbana too, I think, too, right? Or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
some high fashion something.
yeah. Yeah. Let him get paid totally. So I think I'm interested in where that new model goes. At this moment, I don't know if there's any guardrail to say, hey, that's probably too far of selling out. Um, and again, like in many ways, I think in the last 15 years, it's great that they've been able to explore more areas. But watching the Super Bowl yesterday, the Ritz crackers commercials was maybe that was the jumping of the shark. It's happened.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to like I think the Rubicon has been crossed. We're at a really weird spot. And it's weird if you look at like the difference between Sydney Sweeney and Zendaya and how I don't even, like I'm sure she does something, but Sydney Sweeney's out there selling everything.
Mm-hmm.
She put her used bathwater into a soap so they could sell special bars of soap. That's like a new thing. Now she's doing the Rihanna thing where she's got her own lingerie brand. And it's like maybe some of these stars, I'm wondering like this, like, do they even want their fame or do they want to be like business moguls?
Mm-hmm.
And when you see that like Rihanna turned her music career into $1 billion empire that she could never have achieved as an artist ever, especially not with record contracts. And maybe they want that. I don't know. Like I find that level of wealth kind of unappealing. But like, if that's what you want,
Yeah. And I
is a
just
movie star just a vehicle to that now? Are people seeing in like the social media influencer age? Ultimately, I want to be an entrepreneur, so my vehicle to that is my fame and not my art. I don't know,
totally.
man.
And then again, I think tying it back to ultimately what we want, what two movie nerds want is like, go make your Casamigos brand. Go Sydney, go sell your lingerie line. But like, if it can propel you to do more interesting work and free you to make more interesting choices, please do that. Just don't forget about the movies. Just like
Yeah. Rihanna,
yeah.
come back. Give us an album. We're waiting for it, Rihanna. Where are you, dude?
Well, I think we solved it, Max. You and I, we solved it.
Yeah.
Please, if we're missing anything, please comment and or write in because like we could have blinders on. Again, we're just two dudes who love movies, and we know a little bit about marketing, we know a little bit about story and stuff like that. But if we're missing an element of a younger generation, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot we don't know. So help
Yeah.
us out, dude. We're struggling out here.
Yeah, what are we talking about in the future? We're leaving the monolith of the Super Bowl, and now what are we going to
Yeah.
talk about?
Well, we're going to go to a much more prestigious national program, and that would be the Oscars.
Can't wait.
I'm
I can't
excited
wait.
about them. Like I've said on this podcast before, I didn't watch them for a very long time, even though I was very, very obsessed with them as like a teenager working in a movie theater. But I really like the show that Conan did last year. I think the nominations this year are, they're never perfect, especially because everything's subjective. But I think like they're pretty fair this year and pretty
Mhm.
honest and pretty decent. And so Dave and I think we're going to get together. We're going to talk about kind of our hopes and our wishes for what's going to win. We're also going to look at the box office performance of all the Best Picture nominations and talk about their impact on American culture and what their reach has been and what's kind of the reality versus what's the narrative and how Oscar campaigns like Marty Supremes can mislead those things.
I can't wait for an Avatar versus Marty Supreme conversation about the cultural impact. That's I think that's gonna be part of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
man, I think it's gonna be a fun conversation. I do think 2025 was not just the year that we kicked off this podcast, but a damn good movie year, and can't wait
Yeah,
to
I
that we get
think, dude, the numbers are there, man. Like 2025 was a good year for movies. So, speaking of, what do you plan on seeing next, Dave?
my wife and I my wife and I have tickets to Wuthering Heights Saturday night. We tend to not be huge Valentine's Day people, but for this,
Uh,
I am pumped for it. I think it's the trailer of the year so far. I think it's
yeah,
a
okay.
fantastic trailer, and can't wait for the experience. So seeing that on Saturday.
Sick. I'm busy this weekend, so I got to figure out when I'm going to go see something because I still want to see The Moment. I want to see that Charlie XCX movie. I hear it's very funny. I definitely got to see Wuthering Heights. I had a plan to see it with a bunch of my guy friends, and I think they all kind of like slowly backed out, like tiptoed out of the room from doing that plan. So I got to see if that's still a thing or not. And then yeah, Pillion. I want to see Pillion really bad.
Yeah,
So I don't know which one it's going to be. Um, I'm watching
dude, that's
Sentimental
so fun.
Value at home with some friends. I'm still trying to watch all these Oscar noms, but yeah, theater. I'm guessing. My guess is going to be Wuthering Heights, and I'm excited for it.
Nice. Sex is back in movies. Pillion and
Hell
Wuthering Heights.
yeah, dog!
Yeah,
Housemaid. People boning
yeah.
all over that movie. It's crazy.
All right, Max. I guess I'll see you at the movies.
Yeah, man. I'll see you at the movies, my friend. Have a good night.